My daughter called me on a Tuesday morning, which should have been my first warning sign. She never calls on Tuesdays. She never calls before noon, honestly. But there she was, her name lighting up my phone at 8:47 in the morning, and I picked up thinking something was wrong. "Mom," she said, and her voice had that warm, careful tone she uses when she wants something. "I was thinking, why don't we all come visit this weekend? Kevin and I, and the kids, just to spend some time with you." I said that sounded lovely. I should have known better. My name is Lorraine. I'm 68 years old, and I live in the same house in Asheville, North Carolina, where I raised my 2 children, where my husband Frank and I spent 31 years of our marriage, and where I have lived alone for the past 4 years since Frank passed. It's a 3-bedroom craftsman-style house with a front porch that wraps halfway around, a backyard with 2 big oak trees, and a kitchen that smells like the cinnamon candles I've burned every winter since 1994. It is paid off. It is mine. It is, as Frank used to say, the one thing we built that nobody can take away from us. Frank was wrong about that, as it turned out. My daughter's name is Diane. She's 41, married to a man named Kevin who sells commercial real estate and has the handshake of a man who was told at 23 that firm handshakes build trust and has been compensating ever since. They have 2 kids, both in middle school, both perfectly fine children who spend most of their time on screens. Diane works part-time at a wellness center doing something with essential oils and scheduling. She has always been smart. She got that from me. The problem is, she also learned that charm can substitute for honesty, and that she did not get from me. My son Thomas is 38 and lives in Denver. He's quieter, more like his father. He stays out of things. He stayed out of this too, which I hold against him more than I probably should. That Tuesday call from Diane came on a rainy morning in late October. By Friday, she and Kevin and the kids had pulled into my driveway with 3 bags of groceries and a bottle of wine, and I was genuinely happy to see them. I made pot roast. We watched a movie. The grandkids fell asleep on the couch. It felt like a real visit, the kind I'd been hoping for. Saturday morning, Kevin made pancakes. He is a good cook, I'll give him that. We sat around the kitchen table and drank coffee, and everything felt warm and ordinary. And then Diane set down her mug and said, "Mom, there's something Kevin and I have been wanting to talk to you about." I looked at her. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, "and we're really worried about you being here alone. This house is so big. And the upkeep. You know the roof is going to need work soon, and the property taxes keep going up. And we just feel like the burden of all of this is too much for one person." I told her I managed fine. "Of course you do," Kevin said, and he smiled the way he smiles when he's about to disagree with you. "You're incredibly capable, Lorraine. That's never been the question. The question is whether it makes sense, financially, logistically, for you to be carrying all of this alone." I asked them what they were suggesting. Diane pulled out a folder. I remember staring at that folder and feeling something cold settle in my stomach, because nobody brings a folder to a casual family visit. A folder means this was planned. A folder means there are documents inside that someone wants you to sign. "We talked to a financial advisor," she said, and she slid a piece of paper across the table toward me. "And what he explained is that if we restructure the ownership of the house now, if you transfer the deed into a joint tenancy with right of survivorship with me and Kevin, it actually protects you. It means the house bypasses probate when the time comes. It saves the estate a significant amount of money. And it means that if anything ever happened to you, the house would go directly to us without any legal complications." I looked at the paper. It had a lot of words on it. I did not pick it up. "Who is this financial advisor?" I asked. Kevin named someone I'd never heard of. He said the man's office was in Charlotte. He said they'd been working with him for about a year. I said I would want to speak with my own attorney before I signed anything like that. Diane's face did something complicated. It smoothed over very quickly, the way a pond smooths over after you throw a stone. But I saw the ripple. "Of course," she said. "Absolutely. We just thought It's a simple document, Mom. It's not adversarial. It's just smart planning. Then it'll still be smart planning after I've had my attorney look at it, I said. Kevin laughed a little too quickly. Absolutely, he said. We finished the pancakes. The kids went outside, and I sat with that folder on the table in front of me and thought about Frank, who used to say that whenever someone tells you something is simple, that's exactly when you should slow down and read every word. The visit ended Sunday afternoon. Diane hugged me a long time at the door. She said she loved me. She said she just wanted me to be taken care of. Kevin loaded the car. The grandkids waved from the back seat. I stood on my front porch and watched them go, and then I went inside and called my attorney. Her name is Patricia Bowman. I've used her for 20 years, since she helped Frank and me update our estate plan after his mother died. She's sharp, no nonsense, the kind of lawyer who charges you fairly and tells you the truth even when it isn't what you want to hear. I described the document to her over the phone. I told her what Diane and Kevin had explained. Patricia was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Lorraine, I want you to bring that folder to my office tomorrow." I went Monday morning. Patricia read through everything carefully. She asked me a few questions. Then she took off her reading glasses and set them on the desk and said, "This is not primarily an estate planning document. This is a property transfer. If you sign this, Diane and Kevin become co-owners of your home with equal rights to it. That means they could, in theory, force a partition sale. It means any debt they carry could potentially create a lien on the property, and it means you would need their agreement to refinance, sell, or make significant decisions about your own home." I sat very still. "The probate savings are real," she said, "but there are other ways to achieve that. A revocable living trust, for example, that protect you completely without giving anyone else ownership rights while you're alive." I asked her why Diane and Kevin would present this as the obvious solution if there were other options. Patricia looked at me with the careful expression of someone who has seen this particular situation before. "I can't speak to their intentions," she said. "What I can tell you is that this document benefits them significantly and offers you very little that a better structured plan wouldn't provide with far less risk." I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not quite anger. Closer to grief, actually. The kind that comes when someone you love does something that makes you realize you didn't know them as well as you thought. I did not sign the document. I also did not tell Diane right away. I needed to think. And while I was thinking, I made an appointment with Patricia to update my estate plan the right way, with a revocable living trust that kept full ownership and control with me for the rest of my life, designated Thomas and Diane as equal beneficiaries upon my death, and included a clause that required any changes to be made only with the written consent of both children and independent legal counsel. I also added Patricia as my designated point of contact for any legal matters relating to the property, with a note on file that no transfers were to be processed without her direct involvement and my in-person confirmation. That took about 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, Diane called 4 times. Each call was friendly. Each call circled back eventually to the document. Had I had a chance to look it over? Had I spoken to someone? She just wanted to make sure I wasn't overthinking it. I told her I was still working through it. The 4th call, she cried a little. She said she was scared for me. She said the house was too much for me to manage alone, that something could happen, that she couldn't sleep at night worrying. Her voice broke in a way that would have devastated me once. I sat on my porch swing and listened to her and felt the shape of how much I wanted to believe her, and underneath that, the harder shape of what Patricia had shown me in that folder. "I hear you," I told her. "I'll let you know when I've made a decision." What I didn't tell her was that Patricia had already filed the new trust documents. What I didn't tell her was that my house was now held in the Lorraine H. Whitfield Revocable Living Trust, with me as sole trustee during my lifetime, and that the deed had been updated accordingly with the County Register of Deeds. What I didn't tell her was that I had also changed the locks, not out of cruelty, but because I had a spare key on a hook in my kitchen that Diane had known about for 15 years, and I realized I could no longer trust what she might do with it. I went on with my life. I had coffee with my friend Beverly on Thursdays. I took a watercolor class at the community center on Wednesday evenings. I raked leaves. I called Thomas in Denver and told him in broad terms that something had happened with Diane that I needed him to know about. Thomas listened, asked a few clarifying questions, and then said, "Mom, I'm really sorry. I didn't know she was going to do that." I believed him. I still do. Thanksgiving came. Diane and Kevin and the kids drove up. I had cooked for 2 days. The house smelled like turkey and sage stuffing and the particular warmth of a home that has been lived in for a long time. We sat down together, and it was, on the surface, a perfectly nice holiday. After dinner, when the kids had wandered off and Thomas had stepped outside to call his girlfriend, Kevin leaned back in his chair and said, "So, Lorraine, any progress on that paperwork?" I put down my coffee cup. "Actually, yes," I said. "I've made some decisions about my estate plan. I worked with my attorney and set up a revocable living trust. Everything's been filed." Kevin looked at Diane. Diane looked at me. "That's great, Mom. So the house is in the trust?" "It is," I said, "with me as sole trustee. It'll pass equally to you and Thomas when I'm gone through the trust, and it bypasses probate completely, just like you wanted." There was a silence. "So the joint tenancy document," Kevin started. "I didn't sign that," I said. "The silence got a different quality to it," Diane said carefully. "Mom, we just thought I know what you thought," I said. And I looked at my daughter, my 41-year-old daughter who I had rocked to sleep and driven to school and sat beside in the hospital when she had her appendix out at 13, and I said, "I love you. I want to have a good relationship with you. But I need you to understand that this house is mine. It was mine and your father's, and now it's mine, and I will manage it and make decisions about it for as long as I am alive and capable. My attorney agrees that I am fully capable. My doctor agrees that I am fully capable. And I have made sure that my wishes are documented and protected in a way that leaves no room for anyone to decide otherwise on my behalf." Diane's eyes filled up. Kevin sat very still. "I'm not saying this to hurt you," I said. "I'm saying this because it needed to be said, and because I should have said it sooner, the morning you put that folder on my kitchen table." Kevin cleared his throat. "Lorraine, we really were just trying to help, Kevin," I said pleasantly. "I think it might be a good night for you to go check on the kids." He went. Diane and I sat there for a few minutes. She cried, real tears, and I handed her a napkin and let her. I didn't apologize. I didn't walk anything back. I had spent 68 years being the person who smoothed things over, who found the middle ground, who let things go to keep the peace. Frank used to say I had more grace than anyone he'd ever known. Maybe. But grace isn't the same as surrender. "I don't want things to be like this between us," Diane finally said. "Neither do I told her. "But things are like this because of choices you made. And the way they get better is that you make different choices going forward." She nodded. She didn't say anything else for a while. Then she helped me clear the table and we washed dishes together in a quiet that was uncomfortable but honest, and I thought that was probably the right place to start. The weeks after Thanksgiving was strange. Diane called less. When she did call, she was careful, like someone walking on a floor they weren't sure would hold. Kevin didn't call at all, which was fine with me. Thomas came to visit in December, and we had a quiet, peaceful week. We watched old movies, drove up to Chimney Rock, made Frank's chili recipe from the card he'd written out in his careful handwriting in 1987. Thomas said, the night before he left, "Dad would be proud of you, Mom." I told him not to make me cry before breakfast. In January, I got a letter. It was addressed to me, but it was from a real estate attorney in Charlotte, not Patricia, someone I didn't know, and it said that as a co-owner of the property at my address, his client Diane Whitfield Marsh was requesting a formal appraisal as a preliminary step toward exploring partition options. I read it twice. Then I called Patricia. "They can't do this," she said after I read her the letter. "You are the sole owner. The deed is in the trust. Diane is a beneficiary of the trust, which means she has no ownership rights and no standing to request a partition. Whoever sent this letter either doesn't have accurate information about the title or is hoping you don't." I asked her to respond on my behalf. Patricia sent a letter back to the Charlotte attorney the following day. It included a copy of the trust documents and the updated deed and a very clear, very measured explanation of the legal situation. It concluded by noting that any further attempts to interfere with the property or mislead my client regarding her ownership status would be addressed accordingly. I did not hear from the Charlotte attorney again. I did not hear from Diane for 6 weeks. When she finally called in late February, her voice was different, quieter, less rehearsed. She said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I think Kevin had ideas that I let myself go along with, and I knew it wasn't right, and I did it anyway. I'm sorry." I was sitting in the sunroom with my watercolors and a cup of tea. Outside, the first crocus of the year had come up along the front walk, pale purple against the grey February ground. I told her I heard her. I told her that I loved her. I told her that the road back from something like this was long, but it wasn't closed. She cried again. I let her. I don't know exactly where things stand now. Diane and I talk most weeks. Kevin and I are polite when necessary. Thomas thinks I should give her more time and less leeway, and I think he's probably right. My house is mine. My trust is filed. My attorney has every document. My locks are changed. And every morning I come downstairs to my kitchen and I put on the kettle and I light a cinnamon candle and I look out the window at the 2 oak trees Frank planted in 1989 and I think about what it means to have built something, really built it, with your hands and your years and your love, and how important it is to know what it's worth, not in dollars, in what it means to stand in it and know that it belongs to you. I earned this. Frank and I earned it together. And no folder on a kitchen table, no letter from a stranger's attorney, no careful, loving voice on a Tuesday morning phone call is going to take it from me. I made sure of that. And I would do it again without hesitation for every woman sitting in her own home right now, wondering if she's being too suspicious, if she's overreacting, if maybe she should just sign the papers to keep the peace. Don't sign the papers. Call your attorney first. I've had a lot of time to sit with what happened. Not obsess over it, just sit with it the way you sit with something heavy until you understand the shape of it. What Diane and Kevin tried to do didn't come from nowhere. That's the part people don't want to hear, because it's easier to draw a clean line between the villain and the victim. But I was in that kitchen too. I raised her, I watched her learn over years that a warm voice and the right framing could move people in the direction she wanted. I don't know when that stopped being charm and started being something she used against the people who loved her. Maybe I should have seen it sooner. Maybe I did see it and called it something else. What I know is this. The choices she made had consequences she didn't anticipate. Because she made one wrong assumption. She assumed I would do what I had always done. Defer, smooth it over, sign the thing to keep the peace. She counted on 68 years of grace to work in her favor. She didn't count on the fact that grace and compliance are not the same thing, and I had finally learned the difference. There's something I want to say to anyone listening who recognizes this situation, not because I want to lecture, but because I genuinely wish someone had said it to me before that folder landed on my table. The people who take advantage of you are almost never strangers. They are the ones who know exactly how much you love them, and they use that love as the mechanism. They speak softly. They bring groceries. They say they're worried about you, and they're counting on the fact that you'd rather believe them than protect yourself. because believing them feels like love, and protecting yourself feels like suspicion. But here's what I learned. At 68 years old, standing in my kitchen with a folder I didn't sign, protecting yourself is not a failure of love. It is, in fact, the most honest thing you can do, for yourself and for the relationship. Because a relationship built on your surrender isn't really a relationship. It's an arrangement that benefits one party, and the other party just hasn't admitted it yet. Patricia Bowman, my attorney, showed me the truth in that document in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes. The thing Diane had constructed to look like care took less than half an hour to reveal itself for what it was. That tells you something. The truth, when you're willing to look for it, is rarely as hidden as we fear. What I did after that, the trust, the deed, the letter Patricia sent to that Charlotte attorney, none of that was revenge. I want to be clear about that. It was simply cause-meeting effect. Diane made choices. Those choices produced consequences. I didn't manufacture the consequences out of anger. They were already there, built into the structure of what she had tried to do, and all I did was refuse to stand in the way of them. Lorraine didn't win because she was clever. She won because she didn't let the fear of conflict be stronger than the knowledge of what was right. That's the only thing that separates the people who protect what they've built from the people who lose it. And I'll tell you, the crocus that came up along my front walk in February, that pale purple against the grey ground, the morning after Diane called to apologize. I stood at my window with my tea and I looked at it for a long time. Frank planted those bulbs in the fall of 2003. They come back every year without asking permission from anyone. I think about that a lot.